In my mind, I think that nowadays I see miracles happening as an accumulation of a lot of smaller miracles along the way. And I think some very big things happen, some very miraculous things happen as this accumulation of past events and things have occurred. In my own life recently, I was a recipient of one of those major miracles as far as I'm concerned. I had some heart surgery. Now that's not so unusual, and I imagine that out in the audience who is watching this, there's probably a dozen or more people who've gone through open heart surgery. It's not unusual until you stop to think about it. In my case, it was a diagnosis that I had following some testing that my aorta that comes out of my heart was too large. It had developed to the point of being an aneurysm, and it was affecting the aortic valve, and that I probably also needed some coronary artery bypasses. So it was recommended that I have some surgery. So I had to do something in order for this miracle to happen. I had to say yes to something, and thankfully I didn't have a heart attack that preceded this or anything. It was just a decision I had to make. But in that process, you give yourself over to a process which you really can't control. And it's an act of faith, certainly, but when you lay on that operating table, they put you under very deep anesthesia. They cool your body temperature way down to abnormally low temperatures to protect some vital organs. They put you on a heart-lung bypass machine, and then they begin this operation. And at some point in time, then, they stop your heart. And at that moment in time, you have crossed a threshold into a different kind of existence, an artificial kind of total life support. That has involved a lot of smaller miracles happening along the way to allow that kind of event to happen. It's also, at that point, I'll say, a time when spiritual things can happen. My wife, who was in the waiting room at that moment in time, had an overwhelming presence that something had happened. She said to her friends and the people standing with her, they just stopped his heart. And somehow she knew that. Friends there said, well, it's a little too early for that. They said that would probably be 3 hours into the procedure before they do that, and it's only been 2 hours or whatever. And Gracie said, no, I know, they stopped his heart. And moments after that, the chaplain came out, as she said she would, and said she had just received information that I had gone on the heart-lung bypass machine and my heart had been stopped. God speaks. The process took about 7 hours totally, and for most of that time I was on that heart-lung bypass machine, and then they began to reverse those procedures. Once the surgery is done, my aorta had been repaired, my aortic valve had been replaced, my coronary arteries had been bypassed, and they began warming me up and allowed my heart to restart. I had been brought back to life as we know it. So in my mind, that whole process was an accumulation of the miracles that have been done in the past, and certainly miracles that have been done within my lifetime, and certainly within my professional lifetime of just the last 40 years or so. But it brings us to a bigger miracle, I think, an overarching miracle, and that is the miracle of God's grace. Grace from a God that allows these innovations and discoveries to happen. And I think that's a miracle.